company you have probably never heard of just sold more electric cars than Tesla, not in one city, not in one country, globally, for the entire year. And they did it while being completely blocked from selling even one passenger car inside the United States. Let that sink in for a second. The company is called BYD, and in 2025, they sold 2.26 million fully electric vehicles to Tesla's 1.64 million. That is a gap of more than 600,000 cars. Tesla, the brand that basically invented the idea of a cool electric car, the brand that turned Elon Musk into the most famous car guy on the planet, got outsold by almost 40% by a Chinese company that most Americans still cannot pronounce correctly. It is not BYD, by the way. It is BYD. The letters stand for Build Your Dreams. And right now, those dreams are coming true faster than anyone in Detroit, Stuttgart, or Silicon Valley thought possible. Here is where it gets really wild. BYD's cheapest car costs about $10,000. $10,000. That is less than a lot of people spend on a used Honda Civic with a cracked bumper and 180,000 miles on it. And that $10,000 car now comes with the same self-driving assistance technology that Tesla charges thousands of dollars to unlock. Mercedes bundles it into packages that can add $15,000 to the final price. BMW makes you pick a premium trim just to get near it. BYD just put it in every single car they sell. Every model, every price point, even the $10,000 one, for free. In one announcement in early 2025, a company most of the Western world had never heard of rewrote one of the most expensive rules in the car industry. And here is the thing. This did not happen overnight. This is not luck. This is not some government handout story. This is the result of 30 years of quiet, obsessive, unglamorous work that nobody outside of China was paying close enough attention to. A factory full of chemists working on batteries, a company that spent decades building something the rest of the car world thought was a waste of time. And then the world changed. And suddenly, that thing became the single most important piece of technology in every vehicle on the planet. This is that story. We are going to walk through how a small battery company in Shenzhen, China, became the most important car company in the world. We are going to talk about a battery so different that it made engineers at competing companies actually nervous. A charging system that adds 250 miles of range in 5 minutes. A global takeover strategy so smart that even companies hiding behind a wall of 100% tariffs are not sleeping easy at night. Stick around because the numbers in this one are going to make your jaw drop. Section 1. From a cramped factory to the top of the world. To understand how BYD got here, you have to go back to 1995. Not to a shiny tech campus. Not to a well-funded startup with venture capital money pouring in. You go to a small, crowded battery factory in Shenzhen, China, with about $300,000 in startup money and a founder named Wang Chuanfu, who was a chemist, not a car guy. Wang did not want to make cars. He wanted to make rechargeable batteries. Specifically, he wanted to figure out how to make them cheaper than anyone else on Earth. Japanese companies were dominating the battery market at the time, and their prices reflected it. Wang looked at their batteries the way a watchmaker looks at someone else's watch. He took them apart. He studied every single piece. He figured out every component, every material, every process step. And then he built the same thing for a fraction of the cost, without sacrificing the performance that made those batteries worth buying. This sounds simple. It is not. What Wang was really doing was building a culture that said, understand everything, control everything, never depend on someone else for something you can build yourself. That culture would end up defining everything BYD became, and it is the single biggest reason they are winning today. By the year 2000, BYD was the biggest manufacturer of nickel-cadmium batteries in the world. 2 years after that, they were the #1 lithium-ion battery supplier on the planet. Not top 5. Number 1. A small factory in Shenzhen had become the beating heart of the global rechargeable battery industry in under a decade. They were powering phones, laptops, power tools. They were everywhere, even if nobody outside the industry knew their name. The jump into cars came in 2003 when BYD bought a struggling Chinese automaker. No fanfare, no big press event. They just quietly bought a car company, started learning how the car business worked from the inside, and kept going. Think of it like a chess player who already has all the important pieces and just picked up the board. That might sound straightforward, but it is one of the most important moves in modern business history, because BYD did not buy a car company to make the same gas-powered vehicles everyone else was making. They bought it to understand the machine, to know what every part was, why it existed, how it worked, and most importantly, how it could be replaced with something electric. They were playing a 20-year chess game at a time when most of the world was still debating whether electric cars would ever be worth owning. While Ford and GM were announcing EV concept cars and promising future timelines, BYD was quietly building the factories, the supply chains, and the engineering talent to actually deliver on those promises. While Volkswagen was spending billions trying to understand what a software-defined car even meant, BYD was already selling software-defined cars. This is what happens when you start from batteries and build toward the car, rather than starting from the car and trying to retrofit batteries into it. Then, in 2008, something happened that should have made more people pay attention. Warren Buffett, the most careful investor in American history, the guy who has spent decades saying he only invests in things he can fully understand, had his company Berkshire Hathaway put $232 million into BYD. At the time, people thought it was strange. A Chinese battery company making cars? Barely anyone outside China had heard of them. Financial analysts shrugged. A few people wrote confused columns about it. By 2021, that $232 million bet was worth more than $8 billion. Buffett did not get lucky. He saw something that most analysts were not looking for. He saw a company that did not just make cars. They made everything that goes inside cars. And in the long run, that single fact changes everything about how competitive a company can become. Here is what that means in real terms. When Ford needs a computer chip for a new truck, they call a factory in Taiwan and they wait. Sometimes they wait 6 months, sometimes longer. During the pandemic, when global supply chains fell apart, Ford and General Motors had to shut down entire assembly lines. Thousands of workers sent home. Billions of dollars evaporated, not because they ran out of steel or rubber or glass, because they could not get a chip the size of a fingernail from a factory on the other side of the world. When BYD needed chips during that same period, they called their own chip division. Problem solved. BYD makes its own batteries, motors, chips, steel, glass, and even the foam inside the seats. From the raw materials all the way to the finished car sitting in the showroom, almost everything comes from inside their own operation. This setup is called vertical integration, and it is extraordinarily rare at the level BYD has taken it to. Building it properly takes at least a decade. Most car companies have been trying to move in this direction since the pandemic taught them how dangerous it is to depend on outside suppliers. But wanting to do something and actually having it built are very different things. BYD spent 30 years building theirs. Most of the companies trying to catch up are still drawing the blueprints for factories that will not be finished for years. The cost advantage this creates is enormous. When you make your own components, you cut out every middleman. You do not pay a supplier's profit margin on top of a supplier's profit margin on top of another supplier's profit margin. You do not get held hostage by one factory in another country going offline during a global disaster. You control your own timeline, your own quality, and most importantly, your own pricing. When you are trying to sell a $10,000 car, every dollar you save in production is a dollar that makes that price possible. But the single most important weapon BYD built in-house is something they developed in secret and launched in 2020. It is called the Blade battery. And when it showed up, the entire battery industry sat up and paid attention in a way that very few product launches actually cause. Here is how regular electric car batteries work. You take a bunch of small battery cells and pack them into modules. Then you stack those modules into a bigger battery pack. It is like packing small boxes into medium boxes into a big box. Lots of layers, lots of complexity, lots of ways for things to go wrong, and lots of empty space between all those layers that could have been used to store more energy. BYD threw out that entire system. Their blade battery skips the middle layer completely. The cells slide directly into the pack side by side, like blades in a kitchen drawer. That one change made the battery 50% more space efficient. It simplified manufacturing dramatically. It reduced the number of parts that could fail, but the proof that really hit different came from a test called the nail penetration test. This is exactly what it sounds like. You take a fully charged battery pack and drive a steel nail straight through it. The test simulates the kind of serious puncture that might happen in a bad accident. Most batteries, when you do this, will smoke, swell, catch fire, or do all three. The heat builds fast and spreads fast, which is exactly why EV fires are so hard to put out. BYD's blade battery did none of that. The temperature barely moved. No fire, no smoke, no drama, just a hole. Journalists watched this demonstration live. At the same event, they ran the same test on a competitor's battery pack. That one caught fire. BYD made sure everybody in the industry knew which was which. When journalists visited BYD's facilities recently, they watched the nail penetration test run side by side with a standard NCM battery pack. When the nail went through the NCM pack, it exploded into a ball of fire. The blade battery, the same test, produced no fire and no thermal runaway. That battery is now in every BYD vehicle, from the cheapest car all the way up to their most expensive luxury performance machines. One core technology, refined over years, spread across massive scale. And BYD never licensed it to outside manufacturers, which means every competitor is still trying to reverse engineer what BYD quietly figured out years before the public launch. The blade battery did not just solve a technical problem, it created a structural safety and cost advantage that BYD has been building on ever since. In 2025, BYD went even further and released the Blade Battery 2.0, pushing energy density to levels that were closing the gap with more expensive battery chemistries. The second-generation Blade Battery achieves a cell-level energy density of approximately 190 to 210 watt-hours per kilogram, enabling ranges exceeding 1,000 kilometers in select models. BYD also announced a lifetime warranty on the second-generation cells and stated the battery retains its safety characteristics even after more than 500 fast charge cycles. A lifetime warranty on a car battery. That is the kind of confidence you can only have when you designed, built, and tested every single piece of it yourself. Now put all of that together. 30 years of battery expertise, complete control of the supply chain, a battery that is both cheaper to make and safer than anything competitors can currently match. A culture that obsesses over understanding and building everything in-house. That is what BYD walked into the EV era carrying. While American and European automakers were scrambling to figure out how to pivot away from the combustion engine, BYD was already living in the world those companies were still trying to prepare for. Section 2. The numbers that broke every assumption. Let us talk about what all of that preparation actually produced, because the numbers BYD is putting up right now are genuinely hard to believe until you see them laid out. In 2024, BYD sold 1.76 million fully electric vehicles and 3.4 million total vehicles when you include plug-in hybrids. Their total revenue hit $107 billion. Net profit came in at $5.6 billion. And all of that was up 41% from the year before. Read those numbers again, growing at 41% per year. printing $5.6 billion in profit. These are not startup numbers. These are not hopeful projections. These are the numbers of a fully mature industrial company that is somehow still growing like a tech startup. Now look at what was happening on the other side of the world at the same time. Ford's EV division lost $5.1 billion in 2024, and the company projected it would lose between $5 billion and $5.5 billion in 2025 as well. General Motors was burning through billions on EV factory retooling. These are not careless companies. They are two of the most experienced automakers in history. They have been building cars for over 100 years. But their electric vehicle operations are bleeding money while BYD's entire company is printing it. And the gap between those two financial stories is not narrowing. It is getting wider every single quarter. Then came February 2025, and BYD dropped an announcement that landed on the auto industry like a bucket of ice water. BYD's chairman Wang Chuanfu announced that all BYD models would be equipped with the God's Eye intelligent driving system, including models with a price tag below 100,000 yuan, which is roughly $13,700. This includes the BYD Seagull hatchback, which costs around $9,550. God's Eye is not a simple lane-keeping beep that nudges you back toward the white line. This is a full advanced driver assistance suite. The system handles highway driving assistance, lane centering, and automated parking. And by late 2025, more than 2.3 million BYD vehicles in China were equipped with God's Eye systems, generating over 150 million kilometers of assisted driving data every single day. 150 million kilometers of real-world driving data every day. That data goes back into the system and makes it smarter, constantly, without any hardware changes to the cars already on the road. And BYD is doing all of this for free. Every car, every trim, no upgrade fee. While Tesla charges thousands to unlock their version, while BMW and Mercedes bundle similar features into premium packages that can add $5,000 to $15,000 to the final price, BYD put it in a $10,000 car and called it standard equipment. BYD later announced an over-the-air update that added a parking assist system claimed to offer level 4 autonomy, meaning hands-off, eyes-off, and brain-off, which the company described as a world first for a production vehicle. BYD even announced it would assume full responsibility for any accidents caused by the upgraded park assist system and pay for damages, including third-party property and personal injury losses, even if the vehicle is out of warranty or if the driver is not the original owner. A car company taking financial responsibility for its own self-parking technology. That is a level of confidence that only comes from years of real-world testing and millions of data points. BYD is putting real money on the line to back up their technology claims. Now here is the sales number that probably says it all. In the full year 2025, BYD sold 2.26 million battery electric vehicles compared to Tesla's 1.64 million, meaning BYD outsold Tesla by over 600,000 fully electric vehicles. BYD's total vehicle sales, including plug-in hybrids, reached 4.55 million units for the year. BYD's overseas sales hit 1.05 million units in 2025, up 200% from the previous year. Globally, BYD claimed 12.1% of the battery electric vehicle market in 2025, ahead of Tesla's 8.8% and Volkswagen's 5.2%. A company completely blocked from selling passenger cars in the United States now owns more of the global electric car market than Tesla. That fact right there tells you just how big the rest of the world is, and just how fast BYD is moving through it. And then in March 2025, BYD made another announcement. This one was about charging, and the number they put on the table made engineers at every major automaker genuinely uncomfortable. 5 minutes, 250 miles. Section 3. The 5-minute miracle and the supercar nobody expected. The single biggest reason people hesitate before switching to an electric car is not the price anymore. It is not the looks, it is the weight. Sitting at a highway charging station for 30 to 45 minutes while other cars pull in, charge up faster, and drive away feels completely different from pulling into a gas station, spending 4 minutes filling your tank, and getting back on the road. That psychological weight is real. It has kept millions of people from making the switch. Not because the math does not work for everyday driving. It does. Most people charge at home overnight and never think about it. But the idea of a long road trip, the idea of being stuck somewhere waiting for your car to refill, that idea alone has been enough to keep a lot of buyers from committing. BYD just demolished that excuse. On March 17, 2025, BYD launched what it calls the Super E platform, featuring flash-charging batteries and achieving a charging power of 1 megawatt. The peak charging speed reaches 2 kilometers per second, making it the fastest for any mass-produced vehicle. 5 minutes of charging adds 400 kilometers of range. 5 minutes, 400 kilometers, 250 miles. The same amount of time it takes to grab a coffee and use the restroom. To understand how insane that number is, you need to know where the rest of the industry sits. The average public fast charger in the United States today adds somewhere between 60 and 100 miles in 5 minutes, if you are lucky. Tesla's latest superchargers, which are the best widely available charging network in America, run at up to 500 kilowatts. BYD's new platform runs at 1,000 kilowatts. That is double the current best. BYD's Super E platform is the first mass-produced full-domain 1,000-volt high-voltage architecture for passenger vehicles. The flash-charging battery features charging currents of 1,000 amps and a charging rate of 10 C, both new records. The Han L, the flagship sedan built on this platform, can charge from 10% to 70% in just 6 minutes and complete a full charge in 20 minutes. Think about what that actually means for road trips. You pull over, you plug in, you walk inside, grab a snack, send a text, walk back out. Your car has 250 more miles. The gas station experience is not just matched, it is basically replicated. BYD announced plans to build over 4,000 flash charging stations across China to support the new platform. The charging speeds achieved by BYD would be twice as fast as Tesla's superchargers, whose latest version offers up to 500 kilowatt charging speeds. 4,000 of their own ultra-fast charging stations. For context, the entire United States has roughly 6,500 Tesla supercharger stalls spread across the whole country. BYD is building the majority of that number for just their fastest charging tier, in one country, in 1 year. And they are not stopping at China. BYD is already preparing to bring its flash charging technology to international markets, including plans to install approximately 300 high-power charging stations across major highways in the United Kingdom. Similar expansion is underway across Europe, with a focus on establishing a network in the Netherlands, and deployment in South Africa starting in 2026. Now here is the car that sits at the top of this new platform. The Han L sedan does 0 to 60 miles per hour in 2.9 seconds. That is supercar performance. The kind of acceleration that used to cost $200,000 now lives inside a production sedan built on the same technology platform as BYD's most affordable vehicles. But if you really want to see how far BYD's engineering ambition goes, you need to look at their performance brand, Yangwang. The Yangwang U9 is a supercar that produces 1,287 horsepower from 4 electric motors, one on each corner of the car. The car goes from 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in 2.36 seconds. In September 2025, a track-focused version of the U9 hit a top speed of 496.22 kilometers per hour at Germany's ATP automotive testing facility, which is roughly 308 miles per hour. 308 miles per hour. from a Chinese car brand that most Americans still cannot name correctly. The U9 also has an active suspension system that can do something no other production car on Earth can do. The suspension system enables the car to jump all four wheels off the ground simultaneously, as well as dance on command. The E4 platform controls torque distribution to whichever wheel needs it most, which is particularly useful in situations like a tire puncture at high speed. And then there is the Yangwang U8, a luxury SUV that has been filmed driving on water, not crossing a shallow stream, actually floating on a body of water, using its four-wheel motors to propel itself forward. Journalists who visited BYD's facilities watched the U8 climb a sand dune and then float in 1.6 meters of water, moving forward and turning while floating without any water getting into the cabin. A floating SUV that can also rotate 360 degrees on its own axis, that can drive on three wheels with one disabled, that can park itself with no one in it while the owner stands outside watching. Is a floating SUV solving a problem you have on your morning commute? Probably not, but it tells you something critically important about the culture inside BYD. They are not building cars to check boxes on a safety test. They are building cars to find out what a car can actually be when you control every piece of the technology from the ground up. The cheap car and the floating SUV come from the same company, the same battery expertise, the same chip division, the same 110,000 engineers, 5,000 of whom work exclusively on smart driving technology. This is a company that is playing at every level of the market simultaneously and winning at each one. Section 4. The Wall with Windows and What It Means for You. Here is the part of the BYD story that most American coverage skips, and it actually matters a great deal to you even if you never buy a BYD. BYD is not selling passenger cars in the United States right now. The Biden administration put a 100% tariff on Chinese electric vehicles in 2024. The Trump administration expanded it aggressively through 2025. On paper, there is a wall between BYD and American car buyers. That wall is real. But walls have windows, and BYD is a company that finds every single one of them. In Europe, BYD sold around 120,000 vehicles in 2024, and analysts projected that number would nearly double in 2025. The European Union imposed tariffs of up to 35.3% on Chinese-made electric vehicles in late 2024, with BYD specifically facing a 17% rate, lower than competitors because of its vertical integration reducing the subsidy footprint used to calculate the tariff. BYD's response to those tariffs was immediate and surgical. They started building factories inside Europe. BYD will begin trial production at its first European passenger vehicle factory in Szeged, Hungary in the first quarter of 2026, with mass production scheduled to start in the second quarter. The facility is expected to produce up to 300,000 vehicles annually at full capacity. The first model scheduled for assembly there is the Dolphin Surf, which is known in China as the Seagull. The Seagull, the $10,000 car, being built inside the European Union. The tariff is designed to protect European automakers from cheap Chinese imports. It cannot stop a Chinese company from building a factory in Hungary and assembling that exact same cheap car right there in Europe. Turkey's factory enables tariff-free access to the EU via an existing customs union agreement. Additional plants in Western Europe would further reduce logistics costs and create local jobs, making it politically difficult to increase tariffs further. This mirrors the playbook that Japanese automakers ran in the 1980s when Toyota, Honda, and Nissan built American factories in response to U.S. trade tensions. In Australia, BYD models became some of the fastest-selling electric vehicles the country had ever recorded. In Southeast Asia, across Thailand, Indonesia, and Vietnam, BYD is dominant. In Brazil, they are building a factory on the site of a former Ford plant. That detail is almost poetic. In Mexico, something particularly interesting happened. The BYD Shark, a plug-in hybrid pickup truck, became the best-selling pickup in the entire country. Not the best-selling EV. The best-selling pickup truck, period, in a country where truck culture runs deep. And BYD is also building an assembly facility in Mexico. That raises a very specific question in Detroit. If BYD manufactures vehicles in Mexico, those vehicles could potentially qualify under North American trade rules. The tariff wall was built to keep Chinese cars out. A factory in Mexico changes where the car was made. Here is the detail that surprises most people. BYD is not just a competitor to American car brands. They are already inside American cars. BYD has a joint venture with Toyota producing electric vehicles together in China. They supply batteries to Ford. They work with Stellantis on EV platforms. The company that American consumers cannot buy cars from is already part of the supply chain of cars those same Americans are driving today. The separation between BYD and the American auto industry is already much thinner than the tariff wall makes it appear. Now here is why all of this matters to you, even if you will never buy a BYD. Competition drives prices down. That is not a theory. It is already happening. Tesla cut its prices multiple times between 2023 and 2025, not out of generosity, but out of competitive pressure. The Model 3 that cost $46,000 in 2022 costs significantly less today. Ford dropped the Mustang Mach-E price by $8,000 in 2023. General Motors launched the Equinox EV at $35,000 specifically to hit a price point that Chinese competition was making impossible to ignore. Every one of those price reductions happened faster because BYD proved that the math works at lower price points. They demonstrated that you can build a genuinely good electric car for $10,000 and make a profit doing it. Once a competitor proves that, every other company has to respond or start losing buyers. The $25,000 mass-market electric car that felt like a distant hope in 2022 is a realistic near-term reality right now, partly because BYD proved the economics work and forced every competitor to either close the gap or concede the market. God's eye being free on a $10,000 car sends the same signal. Every car buyer who finds out about that will start asking their Toyota salesperson, their Hyundai salesperson, their Ford salesperson, why they are being charged thousands of dollars extra for something a Chinese company is giving away. That pressure does not stay on one side of a tariff wall. It travels everywhere a car buyer can read the news. Now zoom out and look at the biggest picture. American automakers built their identity around the combustion engine, the V8, the truck, the muscle car. That identity is real and it is not going away. But the technology infrastructure underneath that identity, the factory floors, the supplier networks, the decades of engineering talent focused on perfecting combustion, was all built for one specific type of powertrain. Rebuilding all of that for batteries is genuinely hard, genuinely expensive, and genuinely slow. You cannot fix it by writing a check. You cannot fix it by hiring more people. It takes time. Ford's EV division has now posted cumulative losses exceeding $16 billion since it began its electrification push. General Motors has spent tens of billions on EV development. These are not small or careless companies. But you cannot buy your way to 30 years of battery expertise. BYD did not need to pivot when the EV era arrived. Batteries have been their entire world since 1995. Electric vehicles are not an adaptation BYD is scrambling to make. This is the environment they were built for. The EV revolution is not something that happened to BYD. It is something they spent 3 decades preparing for. That is a structural advantage measured in decades, and it does not disappear just because a competitor starts spending money. The tariff wall is real and it is buying American automakers time. That time is genuinely valuable. The question that will define the next decade of the American auto industry is what they do with it. Whether they use it to close the technology and cost gap, or whether they use it to push the hard decisions a little further down the road. Trade relationships change. Political priorities shift. Factories can be built on the right side of a border. Companies that use this window to build genuinely better products will be competitive in 2035. The ones that spend it hoping the wall holds forever risk becoming the American television industry of the 1980s. Those companies led the market for years, were protected by tariffs for a while, and then were largely gone within a decade. Wang Chuanfu, the founder and chairman of BYD, said in 2024 that the company's goal is not to be the biggest car company in China. It is to be the biggest car company in the world. In 2025, BYD became the world's clear leader in all-electric cars, both in terms of global production and worldwide electric car sales. Tesla, which was still leading sales in 2024, was left far behind. 5 years ago, that sounded like ambition. Today, it sounds like a schedule they are already ahead of. And here is the version of this story that actually ends well for everyone. More competition at the technology frontier means faster progress for the whole industry. 5-minute charging will pressure every charging network on Earth to match it. Free advanced driver assistance on a $10,000 car will force every other brand to justify why they are still charging thousands of dollars for the same features. A car that costs $10,000 and delivers genuinely modern technology, even if it never shows up in your driveway, sets a price expectation in every buyer's mind that every manufacturer has to eventually answer to. Competition, even from behind a tariff wall, makes the cars you can actually buy better and cheaper. American consumers are already feeling that. Car prices are coming down. Features that used to be luxury add-ons are becoming standard. The window for affordable electric vehicles is getting closer, faster than it would have without BYD applying pressure from the outside. The company started in a small battery factory. 30 years later, it is the biggest electric car company on Earth. It sells a car for $10,000 that comes with technology competitors charge $15,000 extra to unlock. It built a charging system that makes gas stations look slow. It built a supercar that goes 308 miles per hour and a luxury SUV that floats on water. And it did all of this while being completely blocked from the largest car market in North America. That is the story of BYD, not a scare story, not a doomsday prediction. Just the story of what happens when one company spends 30 years building the exact right thing at the exact right time. And then the whole world finally catches up to what they already knew. If you made it this far, hit the like button right now. It genuinely helps this channel reach more people, and it takes a serious amount of work to put something like this together. Subscribe and hit the bell so you are here when we cover the next one. Now I want to hear from you. If BYD opened up sales in your country tomorrow and offered a fully loaded electric car for $15,000, would you buy one? Or does the brand name still matter more than what the car actually does? Drop your answer in the comments below. That conversation is always worth reading.